me tell you a little bit about Hal Sutton and his career, both amateur golf and pro golf. First of all, as you well know, in '83 he won the PGA Championship. He was the Player of the Year. And he was on the Ryder Cups at '85, '87, '99, 2002. He was the captain in 2004. Does anybody know who his assistant captain was in 2004? Yeah, Mr. Jack Burke was his assistant captain in 2004. In 2000, Hal was awarded the Pink Stewart Award. In '83 and 2000, he won the Players. '98, the Tour Championship. '79 and '81, he was on the winning Walker Cup team as an amateur. And in 1980, he was the USGA amateur champion. So as you can tell, Hal's history goes back for amateur golf as well as professionally. During his pro career, he won 14 total tournaments on the PGA. What do you say about Mr. Burke, other than what a fine gentleman and a scholar and as big a supporter in this country of amateur golf? But let's talk about Jack and Mr. Burke and his history. He was on 5 Ryder Cup teams. He was the captain in '57, '73, and in 2004 he was the non-playing captain working with Hal. He was the PGA Player of the Year in '56. He won the Varden Trophy. Insane. He was he co-founded Champions here with Jimmy DeMeritt in '57. Needless to say, at this facility, we've been very blessed with his leadership, had many, many major tournaments here, including the PGA Tour Houston Championship from '66 to '71. We had the '67 Ryder Cup here, the '69 U.S. Open, the '93 U.S. Amateur, and 5 Tour Championships. Jack was elected and honored to be in the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2000. And he was recipient of the PGA Tour Lifetime Achievement Award. Total between these 3 gentlemen, Jack had 18 Tour Championships, Bruce had 23, including the ones in Australia, and Hal had 14. So these 3 gentlemen, I don't know very many places in America you can go for dinner, and have 3 champions totaling, let me count here, 41, 55 PGA championships. I think the other thing that's important is, other than their personal accomplishments, is what they've done to give back to the game. I won't go through great parts of that, but I do want to compliment Hal, because a lot of people always wonder about, hey, somebody's made a lot of money on tour and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, Bruce, you made some whopping paychecks of $25,000 to $40,000. But Hal gave back huge to the community. After Rita and Katrina, he and David Toms raised over $2 million for the victims. In 2004, he was awarded the Omar Bradley Spirit of Independence Award. And in 2006, he was given the Golf Writers of America the Charlie Hartfield Award. So I think not only do we have great golfers here, both amateur and professionals, we've also got gentlemen who have given a lot back to the game. So the format tonight is very simple, very easy. Well, it's a Q&A session for any of these 3 gentlemen. And I will open it up to the crowd and to the audience if there are any questions off the start of your mind, and you can have the microphone.
Oh, that was easy, Jack.
That was easy, Jack. Hal, I guess one question I've got to start with is at what point did you meet Jack and Bruce, and how long back do your friendships go?
Well, this back porch back here, in 1976, Coach Williams was trying to recruit me to come to the University of Houston, and I had a golf game with Keith Fergus that day out here, and I was just like anybody else walking into the pro shop, and the first person I see coming out of the pro shop is Mr. Burke. And I introduced myself to him, and he said, well, you must be somebody that Houston's trying to recruit. And I said, yes, sir. And they had been out here, you know, a lot of players have been out here. That's where they entertain them, I guess. And I said, well, Mr. Burke, it's really nice to meet you. I said, what's it like being on the PGA Tour and playing professional golf? And he went, and just turned around and walked off. So that was kind of the first day. The second day, I was invited back out here, and I'm walking into the pro shop again, and I walk up, and he just shoves me off the porch. And I said, what's that for? And he said, you asked me yesterday what it's like PGA Tour. He says, just like that. Nobody cares about you. So he was 100% right. I spent 35 years out there. Nobody cared. So anyway, our friendship started then, and it's never ended. So y'all need to listen to them. They got a lot more to say than I do, and it's full of wisdom. So.
Mr. Burke, if you could pick 3 other persons from any time in history, who would be in your foursome and what course would you play?
If I could take, I need to bring a fourth man in.
If you could put a foursome together and play any course in America, any place in the world, what foursome would you put together and what course would you go play with that foursome?
I'd like to play the course that I'm on because that's where they're giving the money out.
And who would you invite to play with you?
I'd like to, because he liked to gamble, I'd like to play with Hogan. He loved to gamble. We used to have a match at Seminole, and he would take Claude Holman and he was bringing up, what's the guy's name? I can't remember right now. But he'd play Claude Holman, and I had Kerry Middlecall. And this particular one day, I beat him out of $700. And he said, I'll see you at Augusta. I said, I can't wait. Be sure you can bring Claude Holman and I'll have Middlecall. We got to Augusta, and I said, where's Claude? He said, Claude won't be here today. He said, I'm playing you. So he shot 67 and got all 700 of it.
Bruce, the same question for you. What would be your foursome that you pick and where would you play?
Well, I think the very first professional golf tournament I ever played in was a tournament in Australia called the Lakes Open. And I was paired that particular first 2 days with a female by the name of Marlene Hagee and a male by the name of Kel Nagel, who we just lost a few weeks ago, unfortunately. I remember one little thing about that meeting. We were sitting having lunch and she looked at Kel and she said to Kel, so is this your boy that we're playing with? And he said, wait a minute, how old do you think I am? And she said, well, how old are you? And he said, well, I'm 34 and he's 17. And she said, so? Why wouldn't that work? No. But I would dearly love to, of the professional golfers that I have played with over the years, I think he'd be one, or Kel. I was very fortunate, and I left it out of my story tonight, that when I finally got to Augusta, the first person I met in the locker room was Ben Hogan, whom I was introduced to by Norman Von Nyder. So I got to play a lot of practice rounds with Ben in the ensuing 7 or 8 years. So it'd be nice to have him back. I don't know. I was just made a great-grandfather about 15 months ago. Maybe I'll pull Barron in when he's about 7 or 8 years old and let him play with 2 of the greatest legends and his great-grandfather. Where would we play? I guess we'd have to go to Beaufort, South Carolina, where Gloria's going to spread me into the marsh when I finally say goodbye.
Yes, very quickly.
Hal, who would you have?
Well, I've never had the pleasure of playing with Mr. Burke. Known him all these years. I've never had the pleasure of playing with him. So I'd like to do that one day. I've seen him hit a lot of golf balls, but I've never played with him.
Do you have $700 in your pocket?
I'd pay a lot more than $700 to play. I always wanted to play with Mr. Hogan. My dad joined Shady Oaks whenever I was in college, hoping that I might be able to play with him, and he never wanted to play with me. And, you know, I grew up idolizing Jack Nicklaus. I tried to copy everything that he did. So I played a lot of golf with Mr. Nicklaus, and I'd like to play another round of golf with him. So, but as far as where I'd like to play, I guess if God came down today and said, you got one day to play, it'd be Pebble Beach. I'd say, let me get 36 in, let's go to Cypress Point too.
Any questions from the floor? Andrew, we got one over here.
Hey Hal, I was just curious, why didn't you go to the University of Houston?
Biggest mistake of my life. Let me tell you where it all went south. Coach Williams took me down to basketball game at Hopkins. It was great, you know, back in those days we had an incredible basketball team. So I've been out here playing, met Jackie Burke, Jimmy DeMeritt, Keith Ferguson. It was kind of a little bit of a dream weekend for me, you know. And we go to, Coach Williams takes me to the library, and he said, look at that, Hal. He said, there's 42 All-Americans so far at the University of Houston. He said, you could be number 43. And I got in the car, and my dad said, so what do you think? I said, do you think anybody's ever going to remember number 43? And he said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, he told me I could be the 43rd All-American at the University of Houston. He said, I think I need to go somewhere where I can be the first. And that's where I ended up going to seminary. That was a huge mistake on my part. But I'm going right in on it.
Mr. Burke, you talk about Mr. Hogan and your relationship with Ben over the years. There was an article during the Palmer three-part series on ESPN that he talks about a first-time practice round that you, Ben, Dow Finsterwald, and Arnold played at Augusta National in 1958. And supposedly Arnold had a rough day, and he and Ben had an interesting exchange. Can you kind of share with the audience what all went on during that day and that round of golf at Augusta?
Well, he did. He had a rough day. And we're walking into the clubhouse, and Ben Hogan said to me, he said, how did this man get in the Masters? To this day, I mean, as we're sitting right here, Arnold Palmer still burned up about that. Because he was sitting in there in the just an aisle over when Hogan came up with that. And he never got over it. In fact, when we did the Ryder Cup matches here, Arnold was on the team. And Arnold came to Ben and said, Ben, are we going to play the big ball or the little ball? He said, well, if I put you on the team, I'll let you know. So they weren't the greatest of friends.
I'm just curious to know, in your playing careers, like most golfers, we all idolize the way somebody strikes the ball or someone puts the ball. In your careers, who was that person that you played with them, you said, man, I wish I could hit a golf ball
That's
like
a
that?
Bruce or me.
Well, all three of you.
I would say that some of the guys that struck the ball really well couldn't putt, or they could putt and couldn't strike it well. If you were out there trying to make a living, you better be striking it very well. So most of them in the early days were nothing but teachers out in New York, and the clubs were closed, and so Bing started the tour. But there was no such thing as a touring pro. There wasn't one tournament. The only tournament was the US Open and the PGA. And Ben Crosby was the first one to start one in Rancho Santa Fe. And then Bob Goldwater put one on in Phoenix. And a few of the pros started. I mean, the Augusta National was nothing but a pro-am. Bobby Jones would put on a pro-am. And then the baseball writers used to come up and see what Jones was doing. And they're really the ones that made the Masters. It was the baseball writers. But I don't know. I mean, you can say Hogan. I think Snead was the most versatile hitter of the golf ball I've ever seen in my life. I saw him take a leaf off a tree where he was living and put it on a hook and catch a damn fish.
How about you?
I haven't, I'm real solid with my first two picks. I don't think there's any question in my mind that Hogan was the best striker of the golf ball that I ever saw. He had more elevation control of, you could sit and watch him hit 10 drivers and you would swear that it went through that same little area up there, you know, at that apex. And second to him, I think Lee Trevino. I think Trevino was one hell of a player. He did it a little differently to a lot of people, but he knew what the hell he was doing, I can tell you that. And, you know, I suppose you'd have to put a, you know, Jack in there at third, but I mean, compared to Hogan and Trevino, you know, Jack's golf ball bounced around a little bit more than what either of those did.
Hal, over your years?
I think Trevino was first for me. I think the best ball striker I ever saw. And, you know, he can do anything with a golf ball, really. They said he couldn't hit it right to left, but he could sure hit it right to left. Yeah. And, you know, I think that was his excuse for never winning the Masters, really. But he could sure hit it right to left. And the greatest short game I ever saw by far was 70 Ballesteros. Yeah. He can do anything with a short game. But Jack Nicklaus was probably the best manager of his golf game of anybody I ever saw. He outthought everybody.
Brains.
And
Golf brains.
quick story for everybody in the room. You know, I think this will be something everybody will appreciate. You know, I really, when they asked me to be the Ryder Cup captain, it was an honor, but, you know, I kind of wanted to turn it down because I really didn't think the Americans, I thought we were behind the scales on everybody else. And, you know, who do they blame? The captain. All the time, never hit a shot, but they blame the captain for everything, you know. So I wanted everybody to know Jackie Burke. So I called Jackie Burke and said, will you be my assistant in this? And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So we were staying at the Townsend Hotel. We were playing out on the hills, and I'm happy for Robin and Jackie to get up there, you know. And Jackie walked. I said, I wanted him to see the team room, you know. So he walks into the team room. This is so classic. Classic Jackie. He walks in and says, why, hell, I thought we were playing a golf tournament up here. I didn't know we were going on a cruise. You know, modern day golfers, you know, they gotta have ping pong, karaoke, everything else. You know, they don't want to play golf like Mr. Burke and Mr. Devlin, Mr. Nicholas, and all the people that we grew up loving to watch play golf. You know, we just live in a different world now. I want to ask some more questions here. Can anybody get a 3-wood in the air on the second shot on par 5? Are y'all all hitting these low shots like I am? I mean, these engineers that are designing these golf clubs and golf balls for us, Link, I mean, they're going to make us all quit before it's all over with. So we remember how we used to be able to get in the air, you know. Anyway, another little quick story that they will really appreciate. Eli Calloway called Nicholas before Mr. Palmer and said, we want you to hit this driver a few times. We'd really like to sign you to do this. So he hit it. He wasn't hitting it very good. And the engineer said, well, just hit it high towards the toe. And Nicholas turned around and looked at him and he said, you want me to do that? And I want 18 majors hitting it low in the heel. Can anybody relate to someone telling us how to play golf? These two guys right here can tell us how to play golf.
After my career was over, and I can remember one thing about Hal Sutton. I'm sure you all can remember when he had his second shot in at the Tour Championship in the last hole. Does anybody remember what he said?
Be the right club.
Be the right club.
He's copyrighted that.
The president of NBC Sports said, man, you need to copyright that. He said, that's worth a lot of money to you. So I did. So a few months later, he said, so what did you do with that? I said, oh, what are you talking about? Coffee mugs and barbecue sauce, or what are you talking about? He said, no. He said, you know, Pat Riley, when he said 3P, he sold that to the NBA for $10 million, something like that. I think I got 10 cents for it. But anyway, I'm glad y'all can say that. I hear people say that all the time.
Yeah.
Mr. Devlin, you built some of my favorite golf courses.
I'm sorry?
Tell me your top three.
My top three. I'm very partial to Pebble. I think Pebble is aside from the fact that it's a good golf course, it's on the ocean. And
The ones you built.
Oh, the ones I built? Oh, I didn't think that was the question, but okay, the ones I built. I'd have to say that the one I love to go to, partially because of the golf course, but secondarily the tranquility of the marshes in South Carolina, it would be Secession. We built a golf course up in Lufkin called Crown Colony. And I suppose we might as well stay real close to home and go to Walden on Lake Conroe. But I did love building that golf course in Scotland, even though I knew it wasn't going to, you know, it's hard to butt up against the old golf course from, you know, from a publicity standpoint. But it was a fun golf course to build right on. Unfortunately, I got a lot of the cliffs on the south side of that property, and I built a couple of double greens that were actually right on the cliff. So that was sort of fun.
Mr. Burke, in '56 when you won the Masters, the wind was blowing 40 or 50. Could you talk us through that round?
56 when you won the Masters.
Mr. Burke, the question.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Go ahead.
You know, when you won the Masters in '56, the wind was blowing 40 miles an hour, and you wanted to know if you could sort of take him through how you managed to do what you did that day and win the tournament.
We've all heard of Jesus Christ.
Everything went right.
But the second hole, I've never been on it two in my whole life, par 5. I went over the green with a 5-iron. And so the wind was about 50, and how we finished it, I don't know how we got around. The 17th hole is not a long hole. It is now, but it wasn't. And I hit a big slice and held it on the green. 90% of the balls were over the green on the 17th hole because the wind is so much with you. So the wind had blown all of the sand out of the front bunker on the green. And I remember playing sand greens in East Texas. And I said to myself, you know, sand greens are fast as hell. I said, oh, this is going to be a fast putt. And I hit that putt, and I said, God, I said, man, that ain't halfway. And I'm telling you, the wind blew that damn ball. I didn't hit it hard enough on that. That sand wasn't affecting it at all. But it went in. So you just got to realize that somebody else's hand had it, was on my shoulder. I didn't get disqualified, if that helped.
So this question over here, this question is for all three. My partner here in the Champions Cup has played golf for 15 years, played college golf, was very successful, and had his first hole-in-one today. He had his first hole-in-one today. So I'd like to hear about all three of you. A, how many hole-in-ones have you had? And B, if you can remember your first hole-in-one, tell us a little bit about that.
Go, Jackie. How many holes in one he had?
3.
3? Where were they? Can you remember?
I don't really, I know one of them was in Miami. I made a hole-in-one, a birdie, and a birdie. And I went in the locker room and I was telling everybody. And Hogan said, what'd you shoot, 63? I said, I was 4 over par.
Well, I had 4. My first one was at a little golf course on the coastline of New South Wales at a place called Mollymook. And it was a uphill par 3, hit a 7-iron in the hole. Probably the one I enjoyed most, aside from I made one out at Lochinvar as well, on I guess it's the 13 is par 3 at Lochinvar. Anyhow, I made one there, but I actually made one on the 12th hole at Augusta. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't in the golf tournament, but it was in the practice round the Wednesday before the tournament, and I made a hole in one there. And I can't remember where the other one was, to be honest with you. Al, how many you had?
If you make one at this club, you usually get about $1,800. Hole-in-one club here.
Right.
And the other day, we had 2 in one day. So that emptied the pot, right?
Al, what about you?
I made 17 holes.
Can you remember all?
Well, I can remember a few of them, actually. I made 7 on national TV, which is kind of cool for my son. But I hadn't played a lot of very good golf in the last few years, but my son's 12, he YouTubes a lot of that sort of stuff. He reminds me that at one point I was a pretty good player. But I did, the first one I ever made was at Shreveport Country Club on the 3rd hole. I was 19 years old when I made it. But I've had some pretty good hole-in-ones. I made one on 17 at Bay Hill. First year they were giving away $1 million on Saturday, and I made it on Friday. I made one at 16 in Phoenix on Saturday. That's the last group. So that got kind of loud around there. You can get those people riled up pretty quick with that. Can I tell y'all one more Ryder Cup story about Mr. Burke? Do you remember I was the guy that paired Tiger and Phil together? He wasn't really for that. I should have listened to you, but anyway. I really thought that we needed to do something about golf, and so that's why I really wanted to pair the 2 of them together, because they never were great friends, and you know, it was no secret Mr. Nicklaus and Mr. Palmer were great friends either early on in their career, and there's a reason for that. And I'm sure all of y'all know that because we're insecure as golfers and we don't want someone that someone else thinks is good to be better than us, so we can't be friends with them either. Right? Y'all know anybody like that? Well, I thought, well, wouldn't that be good for golf if Tiger and Phil could become good buddies, maybe unite here? Well, it blew up in my face, as everybody remembers, and I'm on the walkie-talkie coming in, and Jackie's got one, and Steve Jones was the other guy who had actually won the U.S. Open at Oakland Hills. That was our captains. And I get on the walkie-talkie, and I said, look, I got to go in and meet the press here, which I'm not looking forward to. And I said, there is no way that Tiger or Phil is going to win this Ryder Cup, so we've got to do something that's going to fire the other 10 guys up. So I'm going to set one of the two of them, and I'm interested in who y'all think we ought to set. It's dead silent on walkie-talkie for a second, and all of a sudden Jackie said, why hell, Hal, set them both. It ain't going to make a damn bit of difference. I got a pen and paper. We're fixing to start working on the closing speech. The second part of this story is y'all can really appreciate this. I mean, I was interested as to why he thought that. So when I get in, I said, you got to explain to me why you think that. He said, every American's got that shaft leaning backwards. Every European's got that shaft leaning forward. He said, every European knows how to use the ground to maneuver the ball. There's not one single player on this team that knows how to use the ground to maneuver the ball. So when I told y'all a few minutes ago that wisdom is sitting up here, you don't have very many times that you get to talk to the wisdom that these two guys have. So that's why I'm
Question from here. So real quick, my partner didn't tell you the real story behind my home run today.
This was the guy that made the ace.
When it was in the air, it was halfway up, I said, give me my first one today. I promise you this. Give me my first one today. And then I was in dumps. Take the right club. You can't make this up. I appreciate you showing up today.
Jack, if you could change one rule in golf, what would you change?
One rule.
One rule. One rule of the rules of golf, if you could make a change, what would you change?
What would I change? I don't really, rules govern so much. They govern everything. All religions, all medical, everything. And the 10 that I'm famous for is the commandment. If we do the commandments, nobody would be in jail. So the rules that I'm famous is I'm dealing with that man up there, because thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not rob, kill people. But that's the rule we got to stick with. These rules down here are just you lose your ball. I don't think that there's a rule I would change. I think there's too many rules. If I only put 10 down here, the USGA put 34.
So of the 34 that your friends at the USGA have put in play, which one would you remove?
Well, we had two boys come in the other day in the club, two juniors, Robert and Andrew, and I said, Robert, you're an 8 handicap. I shouldn't have to talk to you about rules. Mr. Burke is 6,000. I said, what do you think of down here? 11,000. But we're in the second generation of golf down here, and I just let that go right over my head, because we got to get with the rules and try to build a club in this city that they play by the rules. We have kids out here that they get a card in their pocket, and when they shoot a 55, and that kid knows that card's in, because he can come in here and charge a hamburger to his daddy. He thinks he's a damn member. But if he screws up, he gets the card. But those rules prevail in everything, and clubs need to understand that we're not gonna be kicking that ball behind the tree here.
We could go on all night, but we'll take about 3 more questions.
I got a thought, may I?
Oh, sure, Bruce, go ahead.
One of the things that I see with professional golf today that I personally would love to see changed, and that is maximum loft of 56 degrees. Let all these kids learn how to play the game the way it used to be played. You don't miss it on the short side, because you don't have a 64-degree wedge to flip it up in the air and let it come down with no spin on and not move more than a foot. I think that would make it, what it would do, it would make professional golfers today have 2 sand wedges in their bag. They'd have the one without the bounce where they substitute their lofted club. But still, trying to do that with 56 is a lot different than trying to do it with 64. And I think I think you'd see pros play a different game instead of just firing. It doesn't matter if you miss it short or on the short side or the wide side in the middle of the green. Half of the guys would sooner flop it from 15 feet than they would putt it from 45 feet. You didn't like to miss it short side, did you?
I didn't like to miss
Miss it
it.
all.
Al, any rule for you?
No, not really. I mean, as long as we all play by the rules, we don't need to change any of them. And I think that's the point that Jackie was making.
Good point.
Good point. So I think, I believe in rugby, Rick. I believe that it all equals out. And so I'm happy with the rules the way they are.
Rick, you got a question?
For each of you, I'm curious on more of a personal level, at what amateur event or professional event did you first decide that this was going to be my life, that I could make it in this sport and in professional golf? And I might have been Mr. Devlin's salary went up tenfold, but just curious as to, was there a specific point in your life, tournament life, amateur, junior golf, when you decided that, this is for me, this is the direction I'm going?
Like I said, I had won some tournaments in Australia while I was bombing out in America for 2 years. But I think when I won St. Pete in 1964, I was pretty close to Nichols in those days, and I was really struggling driving the ball. And I said to him on Wednesday afternoon, "Come on down, just have a look and see if you can help me a little bit." Well, I think I beat Dan Sykes by 4 shots and Nicholas by 6 that week, and he reminded me the next Tuesday when we were at the next golf club was the last damn lesson he's going to give me. That was when I felt like you can win at home and you can, but unless you beat the best, you don't feel like you're capable of having a full career. And I think 64. By the way, you talk about big checks. Now that was a biggie. $3,000 first time. Jack, I'll tell you the first one he won, what's the name of that?
I won the PGA and my check was hot.
Question I've always had revolves around putting. I watch you guys play on tour, and the question I have is, as an amateur, when I have a putt that's makeable to say inside 20 feet, I pull and push pretty wide, a lot. You guys seem like you get the ball in line almost every time. My question is, when you have a makeable putt, 20 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, and you miss it, how often do you miss it because of a misread or because you push or pull the putt?
I'm deferring to Mr. Burke on that. About when you get an opportunity to make either a 10 to 20 foot putt, you know, and everything else is working great. When you miss it, do you either miss it from a misread or from a mishit or a indifferent strike at ball?
There's no telling. I've never putted a cup in my life. You putt breaks, and if you don't time the break, the word timing is important in the game. You time everything, and the ball, you have to give it time to break. You're putting a break, but you hit through it too hard. That's because you energize the stroke. You don't energize anything in this game. And you're coming down and trying to put energy into it. If you took a little girl on a swing and took her up, you let her go. She goes down slowly and then it goes. And that's why they call it a swing. It's because you come down slower and then you go. My dad used to say, you know why they call it a follow through is you follow something. And that's the way you swing a golf club, is you follow it out. You don't energize it. So, putting and worrying about whether you're going to make it or not is a big waste of time. You just can putt break lines. You don't putt cups. You putt a break line and just hope the hell it goes.
We've all seen Tiger struggle for a while now. Do you guys have an opinion as far as how much time he has left to get it back, or whether or not that time's already passed?
Everybody's looking at me like, best I'll go. Instead of talking about Tiger, about, you know, where he is today with his golf game.
Well,
he may win again, but he forget about Nicklaus's record.
He's down about 100 million, so
yeah.
I don't know if I'll get on the back of his yacht.
We've got time for two more, and then we're going to shut her down. Hold on.
No, I'm not saying stupid.
So the question that I think you all talked about hitting it, you know, and not thinking about swinging a certain way, or thinking about winning, or thinking about the line. When you've got a really tough shot, and when everything's on the line, what do you think about? What do you guys think about in the toughest shots you've ever had? What do you is it a mental thought? Is it a physical, hold it a certain way? What is the one thing you think about?
Well,
everything's on pressure.
I'll answer that my way. Bruce with his anticipating a shot is you want to concentrate on what you're doing, not what you're not doing. You're not winning the tournament. I mean, this is Thursday and the tournament ends Sunday, so those kind of shots out there really don't make much difference one way or the other. But you rarely, you try to hit the ball on the green. And I mean, I see these kids, I've never seen anybody hit them as close as they're hitting, but I didn't have very many wedges for our second shot. So if I got on the green with a 7-iron, that's a hell of a good shot. I mean, I don't think about it. It's just too many things out there to think about. And I concentrate on what I'm doing and not what I'm not doing.
I would say it's, Mr. Hogan always said that he only ever, if he had a good day, he would hit 6 shots around that might be the way that he really wanted to hit them. So I think you have to rely on, on the ability that you know you have and the practice that you've done to be able to pull off a shot like Kirk was talking about where it meant something. And I think you meant more Sunday, didn't you, Kurt? When the tournament was on the line and you had to do something to either get yourself a chance to win the tournament or stop from losing it. So practices, I know a lot of people say that it doesn't mean a lot, but I think you have to have muscle memory and remember what you can do with the golf ball from doing a certain thing.
If you wouldn't bet your money, Cliff, don't hit the shot. And we get out there and if you wouldn't bet everything you got in your pocket, don't try that one.
One final question for each of you. Ms. Hal, we'll start with you, and Mr. Burke will end with you. We have a lot of very, very, very good amateur golfers or very low handicappers, very seasoned amateur tournament players. Won a lot of USGA events, a lot of club events, a lot of regional events. What's the one thing you would tell this group of amateur golfers they need to do to become a better amateur golfer?
Sorry about that. I don't think anybody hits enough club anymore, to be honest with you. And I tell this all the time. I mean, I play all the time with people, and we've become obsessed with distance. And to the point that we want to hit the shortest club into the green. And I mean, it's not even that we talk about it. It's just this mental thing going on in our own head. And I just don't see anybody hit it over the green anymore. I don't see people hit it in the back third of the green most of the time. I don't know whether y'all do or not. So I would say probably make sure that you pull enough club that you don't have to hit it max all the time. That would be me. And I'll tell you one more thing real quick. 34 years ago, I sat right here in this room at the Champions Cup with my best friend at the time. He's not with us any longer. He passed away about 3 years ago. So this is what I'll tell you. Enjoy your friendships that you have right now. Win, lose, or draw. You came here with a friend. And you won't always be able to tell that friend how much you enjoy playing with him. So y'all enjoy your week.
Good. Bruce?
I think if I had to do it over again, I would concentrate more on 80 yards and in with my game rather than what Hal just said about. I mean, we always, we like to hit it long too. I mean, long for us was 260 yards, but everybody likes to hit it long. But when push comes to shove, if you've got a really good short game, that can cover a lot of mistakes.
Mr. Burke, in the final part for this evening, what's the one piece of advice you give this group of amateur golfers to make their games better?
Well, I want the amateur player to play more competitive golf. I would like to get one member of this club in the national amateur. I'm just out to see the amateur. When the doctor and the lawyer and the engineer and the car dealer tee off, you're talking about $15,000 that had they stayed on the damn job, that they would have made that. But you multiply that by 17,000 courses, and I'm going with these people here because they're the ones spending the money. The pros he and I have nothing up. Got skin up, but that's about it. Sutton hit an oil well. So.
He was just checking on whether it's still pumping.
Yeah. But I'm going with him the next time, wherever he's drilling.
You all have a wonderful tournament. Thanks for allowing us to be part of your